Good afternoon and welcome to the Rockefeller Center. My name is Ron Shaiko. I'm the Associate Director of the Center here, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce the Congress to Campus program to Dartmouth College. Dartmouth has been involved at least since 2006 in this program. It dates back prior to 1996, but in 1996 the Senate Center for Leadership in Public Service has taken over this program in conjunction with the former members of Congress Association. They've, since 96, participated in over 170 of these programs nationwide at colleges and universities across the country. Just in the past 2 weeks, they've been at the University of Oklahoma, Texas Christian University, and next week a group will be at the Naval Academy, at Mount St. Mary's University, and 2 others. So it's a busy program, and they're here to spread the word of what life was like in Congress and given the theme of today's talk, what's right and what's wrong with Congress in a contemporary context. To my left is Representative Sue Kelly.
Congresswoman.
Yes, Congresswoman Sue Kelly from the 19th Congressional District of New York. She represented that district from 1995 into 2007. And to my right is Congresswoman Beverly Byron, who represented the 6th Congressional District of Maryland from 1979 to 1993. I happen to have been an American Political Science Association Congressional Fellow in the 2-year period between the time that these 2 women served in Congress, so we collectively have 28 years of experience that are unbroken between the 3 of us, with my little dash in the middle there. Again, the theme today is what's wrong and right with Congress, and that could go on for hours, so we're going to try to rein it in on both sides. What I thought we'd do, we'd start with Congresswoman Kelly, and then we'll go to Congresswoman Byron, and I've got a few themes and questions that I'll pursue after that, and then we'll open it up for some questions. So, start with Sue.
When I saw what the questions was, the issue about that we were supposed to talk, what's wrong and right about Congress, everybody looks at Congress and says there's a lot wrong. So I thought, well, what can I think of that's right about Congress? What's right about Congress is the representative people, the representation that people get from having someone be their local congressperson. I think that the Founding Fathers were very smart in the way they set the Congress up. First, the check and balances that happened between the Senate and the House, and the fact that the rules of Congress. Thomas Jefferson wrote the rules that are essentially the rules for arguing and moving things on the floor of the House of Congress. Thomas Jefferson was a smart man, and those rules work well. So there are things about Congress that are good that come at it from a historic perspective. But right now, there's a lot. Congress is basically at a stalemate. And that stalemate is caused, I believe, by a number of factors. Number one is the fact that communications are so instant anymore. And the game of politics has become an aha, got you game. That when somebody sneezes and uses the wrong piece of Kleenex, it gets immediately twittered across the country, and they say, did you know he used Kleenex that wasn't made in his district? Mm-hmm. This becomes a flashpoint. It's emphasized, and it has an effect. It has an effect on the general public in the fact that they think that Congress doesn't work. And the second thing is it has an effect on that particular person. I believe very strongly there are some things that are affecting Congress quite deeply that must be addressed. One of them is money right now. It's not just communications that are problematic, but one is money. And I have been trying to get people to focus on the great detriment that PACs do. A lot of you know what a PAC, a political action committee is? The political action committees, a lot of them are put together by people who are special interest groups. The special interest groups care greatly whether or not the sewerage coming into their house is on copper pipe, plastic pipe, or cast iron pipe. That's just a silly example, but that's the kind of thing you get. It's nitty-gritty down to whether or not, what product is being used in that kind of an environment. It's gotten to the point where these people, these groups, these interest groups, are really affecting how people are voting in Congress and whether they get money. You will watch people's voting records change. The Club for Growth is out to take away Orrin Hatch, who has been a senator for many years in Utah. And the Club for Growth is a highly critical group, for one thing. They run a report card. They set up a group of votes inviting people to look and see what that percentage is that a particular person in Congress, how they voted. Orrin Hatch has been normal. He's a moderate. He's representing his state. So he's been voting the way his state wants him to vote. And so what has happened with the Club for Growth, and this Club for Growth is just one. PETA, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, you name it, there's an organization, the Clean Water people, the conservation societies, Audubon, people that you wouldn't think. These people have lobbyists in Washington, D.C. I was stunned when I went to Washington and found out that the League of Women Voters was actually canting the information that was going out to, I had founded the League in my hometown, and they were canting the information about what was happening in Washington, D.C. in a Democrat way. I was stunned. But they were also issuing these report cards, and the report cards give you a percentage of voting. If you watch and you go back and look at what Orrin Hatch has been voting, his voting record was normally about, with the Club for Growth, was about 45, 50%, maybe 66, 67 sometimes, depended on the year and the things that were appearing in front of the Senate. Orrin, when they went to Orrin and they basically said, we're taking you out. And if you look back at Orrin Hatch's record, you will see that Orrin Hatch moved his voting record because these people have a ton of money, the Club for Growth. And they said, you've got to vote our way. Orrin in, I think it was maybe 2009, maybe 2010, Orrin had a 100% voting record on their issues. That's affecting the way people vote. That's part of what's wrong with Congress. They can't vote the way they want to vote because they're representing the people who elected them, because they need the money to stay in office. Money is corrupting the issue. And I don't want to get into it any more deeply than that, but a lot of people think when they get a letter from AARP and they give somebody, these are our voting, this is the voting record of the people from all across the United States, how they voted on our issues. One of the things that's interesting about some of the issues in some of those report cards is the fact that they slant them. So they can slant their report card. The unions slant their report card, so they always vote. They always say anybody who's a Republican you can't win the union report cards because the report cards are slanted. If you don't vote a straight Democrat ticket, you're off. You can't be backed by a union. That's what their attitude is. The public doesn't know about all of this. They don't understand how this mechanism can work, and they're not focused on that. It's not the super PACs that are ruining voting. It's not the super PACs that are so bad. The money from the ordinary PACs that are run by the lobbyists of interest groups in the United States today is far more than what's going into the super PACs. It's that money, interest group money, that is really putting its stamp on Congress. To me, this is one of the most important things and one of the biggest things that's wrong with Congress today.
Thank you. Congresswoman Byron?
I'm exhausted after that analogy. Let me talk a little bit about what's wrong, what's right. What's right is the American public has an opportunity every 2 years to go to the polls and elect their representatives. If they do not like their representatives, they have a right to vote them out of office. 2 years ago, we saw an enormous change in the congressional arena. Many of my colleagues who were moderate Democrats lost elections. The moderate Democrats had been working with their Republican counterparts, the moderate Republicans, to get some of the gridlock that we have seen resolved and move this country forward. But I think that's one of the things that's right about our system. We have an opportunity to make those changes, and the American public has that opportunity every 2 years to speak. We've talked a little bit today. I've been in 4 classes teaching since 10 o'clock this morning, so I'm kind of looking, and I keep seeing students that we've met with before. Fortunately, it's a different group that is here, and I'm delighted to thank all of you for coming out this afternoon, because I think this is an interesting dialogue that we have come up to not only talk to the students, but also talk to the community. And I think several years ago, we had a move forward, a push for term limits. The person that currently has my seat has been in that seat for 10 terms. He ran on term limits, 2 terms. Surprisingly, I lost an election. I lost a primary. I represented a very conservative Republican district as a conservative Democrat. The person that holds the seat today is a conservative Republican who ran on term limits. But after his second term, when he said he would not run again, he looked around and allowed us how that there was nobody really as qualified or understood the district as well as he did, and therefore it behooves him to run again. He did. He's still there. He is running once again. He is 85 years old. He may win again. 2 years ago, my son-in-law, who's a very brilliant attorney most of the time, suggested that I run against him as the youth candidate. I said, my God, Mark, I'm 78 years old. What are you talking about? He said, yes, he's 83. You would be the youth candidate. I said, I don't think so. So as you look at Congress, what is right? There are a lot of very hardworking, dedicated members of Congress that take their jobs very seriously. What is wrong is there's a lot of rhetoric that goes on, and a lot of the members, it's a new breed of members. I've got a son. My first husband was a member for 4 terms, 8 years. I have a son that flies for U.S. Air, and he is dying to give up his job and run for Congress. And I try to explain to him, it's not like when his father was there. It is different. Oh, Mom, it's not different. I said, yes, Kimball, it is different. It is today, it is so polarized. Where we used to be able to get an awful lot of things done successfully, today there is gridlock on both sides. I am a great admirer of Steny Hoyer. I've known Steny since it's easy to say in this group because I've known him since 1965. Most of the people in the class look at me and think, 1965? My parents weren't even born by then. But I think this group understands 1965. Steny is a master at the political arena and compromising and working together. John Boehner works well with Steny, but you have Nancy Pelosi on one side and you have Eric Cantor on the other side, and those two will never meet in the middle. And as long as we have that kind of gridlock, that's what's wrong with Congress.
Very good. Thanks. I think there's one point that you both kind of touch on, and I think we want to spend a little time just talking about parties and party leadership within Congress and where that is today, and also party discipline both within the chambers and parties out there on the electoral side and organizational side. The idea of getting primary, that's kind of a phrase that only got started in the last 15 or 20 years, where incumbents are getting primaried by their own party. Now that reflects, to me at least, right, a lack of discipline on the party front as organizations to say you don't do that. So I wonder if you would comment, and the fact that neither of you would be mistaken for the hard left or hard right of your respective political parties, that you're both centrist in that sense, and there's almost no there anymore, that we're left with very few on the moderate side in either party, and as a result, that used to be the glue that held things together, and that's kind of falling by the wayside.
I ran in a Democratic primary against a very liberal member of the Maryland General Assembly. I lost. I got clobbered. I'm awfully glad I didn't lose by a small amount. I had a congressional district that had a lot of agriculture, Appalachia, federal employees, unions, small business. The interesting thing is that the unions pumped in $85,000, which 20 years ago, $85,000 was a lot of money. Today it's a drop in the bucket and nobody would even blink. But it made an impact in the last 2 weeks, and it was a very highly negative campaign. It was kind of interesting because it was the beginning of negative campaigning, at which time he used the $85,000 to cut the life of the rich and famous. Now, Mrs. Byron has, I want you to know, on your federal dollar, visited Israel and Egypt and Kuwait. I mean, I'm under fire in all these places. We've got live guns going on, but anyhow. And then she visited Barbados. Well, I was asked by 2 colleagues of mine to go meet with Nelson Mandela when he was released from jail. And I said, I can't go. We were going to go on a Thursday night, come back on Monday. I said, no, I can't do that. And then they kept after me, and I said, yeah, I guess I'll go, because I have always believed to have credibility of a congressional delegation, you have to have a diversity of views. And it was Ron Dellums and Bill Gray and Steve Solars and no women, and I thought, okay, I'll go. So we were in Namibia on our way home, having left Cape Town early in the morning. And we had to refuel in the Canary Islands and got in at 2:30 in the morning in Barbados. And we left the next morning at 7 o'clock. Now, in the life of the rich and famous, can I get up and say, I've never been to Barbados? No, because somebody would show my passport with a stamp on it. So I just, and you can't answer that question in 30 seconds. And so, you know, I did the best I could on it. But I got clobbered on it. The person that beat me in the primary did not win the general election. The Republican, which was a Republican district that I represented, won it and is still there. And I told you about his term limits. So.
Personally, I hate primaries, but I was in a few. 2 of the ones I was in are chapters in books written about really the most difficult, bloody primaries in the United States during the time I was running. I think primaries are terrible, but I believe passionately in democracy, and I believe in the voice of the people. What I don't believe is in the corruption of the voice of the people by half-truths, outright lies, implication, and that kind of thing that destroys good people from ever wanting to run for office, to having to experience the kind of verbal violence that goes on. That's why I hate primaries. But I don't think we should ever stop them from happening. The voice of the people know when they made a mistake, they will correct it. If they don't correct it in 2 years, they'll correct it in 4 years. Those people don't last very long that were mistakenly elected. Democracy's a messy business.
It's the best business around.
Well, that also raises an interesting question. One of the things that has changed over the last 30 years is how open the process is, that the sausage factory is now exposed far more than it was in the past. And I wonder whether that's not an issue, that this is not something to be seen up close and personal, and that the more Americans see in a very out of context way, the worse they feel. I mean, the institutional ratings are at an all-time low, but as important, if not more important, the individual ratings of members of Congress are at an all-time low. So that the level of political trust that we have, not only about the institution of Congress, but about its individual inhabitants, is at a point where the level of political trust is just not sustainable.
You know, I was interested in my primary was 20 years ago in 1992. It was the beginning of the strong negative ads. I had 3 colleagues of mine, good friends, come up to me on the floor of the House probably 6 months after I had lost and confess that they had hired the same PR firm to do their primary election media, that the opponent that beat me, and their answer was, we don't want our opponents to hire that firm because they're successful. And I said, chickens, you should have gone with what you had.
I think the public gets a lot of misinformation about what's happening down on Capitol Hill. It's boring to watch C-SPAN, to tell you the truth. I got bored having to watch it when I was in office. So I don't blame the public for not getting accurate information. So where do you get your information? How do you know what you're hearing is truth? It's very difficult. The only way I've been able, now that I'm not in Congress, the only way I've been able to resolve that personally is that I get hard newspapers. I get newspapers. They're dumped. 4 newspapers every single day are dumped at the bottom of my driveway. And then I get on my computer and I zap my way through at least 3 other news sources. And if it's a bill, like the health care bill, there's pieces of, what people don't know is if you write a piece of legislation, if it's a good piece of legislation, it rockets around Capitol Hill, whether you're there or not. Other people are going to say, gee, that's interesting. I'm going to put my name on that and put it out as mine. So there's a bill like the health care bill. I wanted to see what was in it. Turned out 3 bills that I had started through Congress are incorporated in various ways in that bill. Excuse me. But I'm sophisticated. I know where to go. I know I know when I can pretty much tell when they're not telling the truth. I have a sense of it. But I was in Congress for 12 years. I don't know what other people do. And I don't think it's an easily solvable problem, but as you say, it's not the fact that it's not available. It's that there's such a mass amount of communication now. You have to try to figure out where to get your sources. So what sources give you the most amount of truth? That's not always easy. I get The Economist, and that is a very interesting perspective. The financial news. I always read the New York Post. It's like a comic book. It's wonderful. But I read the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. I try to balance. I don't know how you all do it. I don't know how you get your information to try to make it. There isn't anybody in this room that doesn't want to make an informed choice. There isn't. Most of the people who vote in America don't want to make an uninformed choice. You want to make an informed choice. But we've made it so incredibly difficult to check sources. You can do it, but you have to know, and it's usually by computer. And I've got with me, actually, I brought, in case some of the students here were asking questions that I knew were completely wrong, I have here some downloads of reality versus what people are saying. And I don't know of any other way to do it except go to the choice
One
places.
of the things that we've talked to the students today, and we've kind of asked how many students read a newspaper versus getting all of their news on their computer. I was quite surprised in one class how many students do read a newspaper. because by and large, the younger population today gets it off of their computer. And my argument with them is that if they're reading and focused on an article that they're interested in, what they're missing is an article on something totally different, 3 columns over, that would enhance their knowledge and be of interest if they only knew it was over there. We're finding more and more news. Our local newspaper in Maryland has done away with Monday newspapers. Now, you can go totally without a Monday newspaper, and the public complains so much they may be bringing it back. But the newspaper industry is in a very difficult situation currently.
You mentioned earlier the notion that it's a new breed of member of Congress. Do you want to, what's your take on what the new breed is?
A lot of the members that were elected last year in the election cycle pride themselves on having no government experience. Previously, it used to be, I'm not one that comes under this category, but many of the members that came in with me or served with me had either a county commissioner, a member of their state legislature, a member of their local mayor, government, and gave them some background in understanding the political process and how you put together legislation and how you get it done. I think the majority of the new members that came in 2 years ago pride themselves on being Simon Pure, having no background in legislation, and pride themselves on that.
You came in with the class of 94, and yet I wouldn't characterize you as a class of 94 member in the sense of how you legislated over your...
No, but I was old. I was really old. I'd had all this, I'm the mother of 4 kids, married, been 51 years. I mean, I'd had a lot of different career choices, done a lot of things. I was one of the oldest members in that class.
Right.
That class is an interesting class because there's not very many of them left. The public made some really bad choices in that class, but they were angry, and the public got angry, just like they got angry about George Bush. And a lot of people went in the Obama year, when he was first elected 4 years ago. A lot of people went in with him that are not going to be there, either are not there now or not going to be there after this election. And that's what I meant by you can hate primaries, you can hate elections, but in the end, the public isn't generally that stupid. They pretty much know what they want in somebody to represent them, and they'll go back and they'll take care of it. I was lucky. I was there for 12 years.
Do you think the Tea Party class that just got elected will have the same fate?
The Tea Party has been corrupted.
We're having trouble hearing you clearly.
Do you want to turn?
Really?
You need to turn us up.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's got the levels. Okay.
Thank you for speaking up.
Yeah.
Is it better?
You've missed a half an hour of the program already.
Let's start from the top.
We can start all over again.
Talking about the Tea Party,
Yeah.
The Tea Party is bifurcated. There's one half of the Tea Party that is really interested in social issues and hardcore rightist philosophy. There's another half of the Tea Party that believes in what T stands for. Taxed enough already. That's what T stands for. And they really care about economy. They care about taxes. And they don't care about the social issues and the other things. So that bifurcation is an interesting thing. When the Tea Party first started, I'm very much in favor of changing our tax code. And so I went down, carried a sign, and walked around with the Tea Party, had a ball, getting to know those folks. But that changed. And the group that I used to be active with, I'm not active with anymore. That group has shrunk. We used to be close to, in my little area, we used to be close to about 400 or 500 people. I don't think there's even 100 that they put in a room now because they got interested in social issues and stopped being really interested in taxes. So that I think is going to have an interesting, it is playing out right now in the primary in the Republican Party. So that'll get played out, that'll be done, and that's it.
Are there any, I guess the analogy on the progressive side would be Occupy, the Occupy movement. Do you see any lasting...
The Occupy movement in Washington has been unbelievable. The Park Service has been rolled, the head of the Park Service and the head of the Interior Department has been rolled because of the Occupy movement. In the Washington area, the tents have been up in parks. The policy is that you cannot stay overnight. So now people are there on a rotating basis with their tents. The Occupy movement has filtered down to smaller communities. I know in Frederick we had a group that was there for, I think, 3 weeks. They said they'd be there 3 weeks. 3 weeks were up and they packed up and left. In D.C., the last couple of weeks I've not heard much of them, but if you go downtown by Farragut Square, you can't get across the square.
Do you see any impact on the Democratic Party by that movement?
No.
We've touched on communications, but let's take it a step further and sort of look at the media as either a co-conspirator or a conduit or something in all of this, what's happening in the last 10 or 15 years. That we're able to segment ourselves by becoming either MSNBC viewers or Fox viewers, or we're getting our news in compartmentalized fashion, and there is no common news. When you had NBC, ABC, and CBS, and maybe a couple of UHF channels back in the day, where everyone was basically consuming the same news, there was that homogeneity that occurred, that we all sort of were on the same page at the same time. And now with a multiplicity of news sources, we each have our own version of truth, and that's all we read. And as a result, it makes life much more difficult to find a common truth in public policy making or in politics in general. Do you think that there's any...
What you find out is a large number of the American public has their people that they agree with, and they tune in to Joe Scarborough, Hannity, Nancy Grace, etc. And by looking totally at those, you do not broaden or give them an opportunity to look across the board and see another side. Probably I would say the Sunday morning talk shows with a commentator, and if it's a balanced panel, you get some interesting dialogues going on and you get both sides of an issue. I was very sorry yesterday I didn't get a chance to watch the governor of Maryland was on with Chris Christie from New Jersey, which would have been an interesting dialogue. Couldn't get it up here. I don't know where it was, but anyhow, I'm sure that was, you would not fall asleep with those two.
Right, but even there, the
problem though with the Sunday morning talk shows. I go to church. I sing in my church choir. That's Sunday morning. I never watch the. People will say to me, "Oh, have you seen the talk show?" No, I never see the talk shows. I'm in church.
I'm in church, but I'm back. You got to get up earlier.
Got to watch the rebroadcasts. I mean, but even there, the viewerships of those shows have just dropped precipitously over the last 10 or 15 years.
Maybe more people are going to church.
If it were only so. So I think that's, people are just sort of honing in on what their sources of information are, and there's no compatibility.
Yeah.
That we have two different truths out there, a Democratic truth and a Republican truth, and as a result of that, how do you compromise? How do you find a middle ground?
It's hard.
Yeah.
My sister's a Democratic committee woman, and she was visiting, and I said, well, let's flick on news. What do you want? She said, well, I certainly would never watch Fox. And I said, that's odd. Let's watch CNN. I watch CNN, but I also watch Fox. How do you know if you don't take both sides? You can't make a choice. So she said, I would never watch Fox. So we watch CNN when she's there. But she also is blinded. And then she'll pick up the phone and call me and say, what about this issue? And I'll say, well, you needed to watch Fox last night because it was on and they were talking about that. Because you're right, people have their favorites and they don't want to have to do the work. It's hard.
The other piece of this this new breed, this sort of almost mission-driven zeal that some new members have, that they're basically an internalized interest group. There's no need for compromise if they know the correct way of doing business.
You mean I'm right and you don't know what you're talking about?
Right. And whether that's a new phenomenon or not, maybe not. I think every member of Congress might feel that way. But it seems that there's been, and maybe this goes back to the leaderships of the role that Steny and Nancy play in basically herding cats. That there's no way to bring 250 or whatever together, 60 senators together. That leadership is what's really the bigger struggle.
For years, they used the club of money. They would donate money to somebody's campaign, and there were swapping going on, and it still goes on. That's how the leaders run out and make a whole ton of money, and then they donate that money to various people on both sides of the aisle, and it's been going on for years, and that's part of why somebody gets elected as a leader. People in their caucus think, oh, they can get out. The one thing they said about Nancy Pelosi when she was running for leadership was she can raise money. She has access to a lot of money. It's all about money.
I didn't get any leadership money. That may be what happened to me.
Well, I only ever got $60 from the Republican Party, because I'm a moderate, and I ran against the Republican Party when I first ran. They never forgave me.
Who has a question?
Yeah.
Can we go to that?
Sure.
I mean, you all came out today.
Right.
You obviously got
I have a
someone.
whole bunch of them up over here, Bev.
You've got a microphone over here and a microphone over there, so just wait for a microphone and we'll get started.
You got to figure out how to turn it on first.
Is it on?
No.
Is it on?
Oh, I had.
Speak loudly, sir.
Blue sweater up
This
there.
matter of gridlock, it may be, I don't want to use the word good, but it may be better that we have gridlock at the moment rather than the alternative. Because suppose one party, say Republican or Democrat, won the Senate, control of Senate, House, and presidency this year, and then tried to put into place their program. It might make the country more divisive than it is now. Better to have gridlock, perhaps, for a few years until more moderates come, hopefully, into office.
I wish more moderates would come into office, but right now the picture is very bleak. Both parties are weeding all the moderates out of Congress. It's the moderates that are willing to cross the aisles and work with each other. It's the moderates who are the glue, as Ron said. They are the glue that hold the place together. The place is falling apart because they've dumped out all the moderates on both sides. The Republican Party is after cleaning out any that are left this time around. I run a PAC in Washington, D.C. for 49 moderate congressmen. I am fighting like a banshee to help those people raise the money to stay in office because the Republican Party isn't giving them a dime.
Blue sweater up there is. You raised your hand a long time ago. I'm trying to help.
Right.
This is more of a comment. I was really surprised at what you said about CNN. I'm a news lover, and I read the New York Times, and I've done it for 50 years at least, I think, because I think I get balanced news. I like The Economist. I think it's the best magazine there is for getting accurate news. I always have been watching public television news and listening to public radio because I feel I'm getting more than one story regularly. I just discovered CNN last fall, and now I tend to go watch CNN at 5, up here, at 5, switch to the BBC's on public radio, then I watch National Public Radio, and I feel I'm getting balanced news, I think. So I was a little surprised at what you said on that.
I wouldn't be too sure that you're getting balanced news from NPR. Otherwise, Juan Williams might be still working for him. Stop and think about that. I know one. And that's what happened to Juan Williams should not have happened.
No, I don't think that should have happened, but I think that was a different kind of incident that happened between him and...
That was more political than you think.
Well, maybe it was.
And
I still feel as though I'm getting news across the board when I listen to National Public Radio or watch public television.
Would you say Anderson Cooper on CNN is a balanced?
I don't watch that particular segment as much, so I don't know. I can't answer that.
Okay. Don't you think he's as balanced as, what's his name? The Hispanic guy on Fox, Geraldo Rivera.
Oh.
I mean, they're like two of a kind. For both, right?
Yeah.
You know, it was interesting. In Europe, I happened to have the television. And do you know who had the most balanced news? Al Jazeera.
Oh.
It was BBC balanced news. I was quite surprised.
Listening to the two of you, one could conclude some points in this discussion that the problem is not so much with the legislative branch, but perhaps lies a great deal with the judiciary and its Citizens United, although we're certainly getting several views on PACs versus super PACs. Would you comment on Citizens United and its impact on our process?
I'm going to let Sue take on the legal aspect of the courts, because she loves to talk about that.
I'm not going to go on the legal aspect. I think, the class I was talking with before, I said if I had one thing I could do, I'd blow up the Supreme Court at this point. I'm so mad at them.
You better be careful.
I think that, well, I'm just angry about what's going on down there. I think that they have actually realized what they've done. And the last I've heard is that they are thinking about revisiting that situation if the appropriate case can come to them. They're bound by stare decisis and by the Constitution. They have nowhere to go. So somebody needs to bring that on a different legal ground that can answer those stare decisis, the judgments that have gone before. Someone has to bring that something on a different legal ground to give them the opportunity to break that decision that they made. They can go back. They've rescinded other decisions in various ways. They can pull that apart and make it so that money is not corrupting the democratic process. Democracy is a great, wonderful thing, but it can be corrupted, and I think that was a very bad decision on their part.
One man, one vote. Stretched a long way.
Well,
one corporation, one vote.
You could quibble about that because the Founding Fathers never, ever expected one man, one vote. They expected one educated man to have one vote, not even an educated woman.
You have a question up there.
Yep.
The PACs are offset in a way. I don't need a mic, ma'am.
To hear you on the tape, you will.
Well, they'll pick it up on the mic. The PACs may have a lot of power, but the common people are being inundated with requests for money. I have received, on the average, about 15 pieces of mail a day for the last month from this fund and that fund and this fund and that fund, offsetting the PACs. I mean, the PACs may have big money donors and corporations somewhere, but there are a lot of people out there that are being inundated with requests for money sent out by half-priced and quarter-priced mail. Our first-class mail today costs 45 cents. 50 years ago, it cost 20 cents. Today, the request for money costs 11 cents, some of it 4 cents, that comes out under the guise of this foundation and that foundation. And we're concerned about the post office being closed and mail delivery going down. Postal workers get their increases, 3%, 5%. What do we increase the postal rate? 1 cent a year? There is a balance, like the same balance on that previous channel that we have on our little television control box. We can balance the news. First we watch Fox, and then we watch the other guy. Then we watch Imus, and then we watch Joe Scarborough. So we get balanced news, but we don't get balanced news in the New York Times.
Just a quick comment on the Postal Service and the nonprofit mailing rates that they have. We actually foot the bill for that. That a revenue loss check is written by Congress each year to the Postal Service that covers all those 4 cent and 11 cent and anything up to 45 cents. So we as taxpayers take on that burden, and you're right, the kind of fundraising they're doing, however, is most of it's 501c3 groups that can't be doing electioneering anyway, so that the money that they're asking for isn't the kind of money that I think Sue's talking about. It's a little different. But we assume as a society that those groups are a good thing, that Dartmouth College is a good thing, so they get the C3 status too, and that any solicitations for funds they can go out and mail at the low rates as well. So that would be something, because that actually did come up in the debate on campaign finance, whether we should have deductibility for political contributions as well as charitable ones. And I think luckily they haven't crossed that bridge yet. To make a political contribution tax deductible, then you'll really see some money flowing in it, because then they can write it off on their taxes. At least now we've sort of bifurcated and said even if you're in the advocacy world, as long as you're not electioneering, you can actually get the tax exemption and the write-offs as we get to contribute to those causes. So it's not quite the same, but you're right. There's money moving, and it's done at they'd actually go out of business but for the nonprofit rates.
If you'll indulge me for 1 minute.
Oh, sure.
Money's fungible. So in my estimation, you're right on, because Dartmouth College can ask you for money for something, but it's fungible. And one of the things these 501c3s do, they raise money where then you're paying for their lights, heat, light, water, the staff, et cetera, but they have other things going out that aren't coming back to the 501c3, or they're running their other fundraising thing with your money, because it's office. They can put that down as office stuff. So because money slides around so easily, it's real hard to get a handle on it. And I sympathize with you. I empathize with you about all that mail.
You know what drives me crazy? When I get that mail that comes in and they have a stamped envelope. I have a drawer, I keep them all in there, and when I have enough of them for a pack, I fold them all up and I put them in one of their envelopes and I mail it back to them.
You know why they do that? They get a higher response rate.
Of course, absolutely.
all.
But because I feel guilty. They put a stamp on it. I can't throw it away. And I haven't been able to figure out how to peel the stamp off. Now, I have people that tell me you can peel the stamp off, but I haven't been able to get them peeled off. But I mean, that just drives me nuts. Well, I've talked to people and they say you just use
a sticker,
yeah,
right
a
on top
sticker
of it.
and put on it. Then I feel guilty. I feel really guilty then.
I put a line through the address and put deceased, return to sender.
But that's on the envelope that comes to you. I'm talking about the one
Return envelope.
inside the return envelope that has the stamp on it.
Right.
Because how about the number of phone calls that come to your house for surveys.
That's countered by today's technology.
Right.
The little phone tells you who's coming in. My dear wife doesn't pick up the phone. She says, you know, it's an 800 service number, let it ring. I say, pick the phone up, put it back down.
Well, my problem is my phone with the ID, caller ID, is upstairs, and I'm usually downstairs. So I pick it up, and they got to start the spiel, and I said, oh, I'm terribly sorry, Mrs. Byron isn't here. I'm the housekeeper. And it works very well.
America has a debt level problem as well as annual deficits. Most Americans recognize that increasing revenues and reducing expenses and tax reform are important to address those issues. We've had commissions, Simpson-Bowles, and more recently other commissions, bi-party commissions addressing this. I don't want to say that a lot of congressmen don't have economics background, but maybe it's a spurious figure. 12% took Economics 101. How do we address these very large, very complex issues to put our country on a better path financially and economically?
You know, I've been trying for years to get somebody to fund an experiment, to go to every freshman class of congressmen and sit them in a seminar like this and say, look, folks, this is Economics 101, micro and macro. You have to understand that we are woven into a global village economically, and everything you're going to do from now on that has any kind of numbers with it is going to affect that, and help them understand. The amount of economic knowledge in Congress is abysmal. People don't know economics. They've never had a course in it.
And it's serious.
Yeah. I've been hammering on the door of people. Chuck Schwab has a wonderful program for fifth graders in most of the boys and girls clubs across America. He's teaching them they're teaching them with the Schwab Foundation, they're teaching them basic economics. We need that in Congress. We need that with the newly elected freshmen, and we need to keep it going.
Do you think the situation in Greece, and Italy, and Portugal will make any impact on the members of Congress as they look at what the European is dealing with there?
It should, but like the Congresswoman said, maybe they don't understand enough of economics. It's not today's crisis. But
and it's not ours.
Or they don't care.
And it's not our crisis, it's theirs.
No, they've got to.
Yeah, but your class was referred to as the non-passport carrying class of '94.
Well,
as if they had no interest in what was going on around the world.
Well, that was Newt Gingrich, too.
So that part of it's that there's a part of that insularity that exists within Congress, like the rest of the world doesn't matter. And
You're right. I was talking with, we had, the arts budget was up, and I was talking with a guy from my class who came from one of the central states. And I said, he said, well, the arts, who needs that? It was at the same time, I don't know if you remember, there was this rather obscene, I'll call it that. I didn't see it because I saw the exhibition. Robert Mapplethorpe, or Mapplethorpe, whatever you pronounce it. Anyway, that exhibit, he said, who needs art? And I said, do you ever watch TV? He did not have any idea about what the effect was of what the government subsidies. Yeah, they go to stuff like that, but they also go to support lots of very good things and bring out a lot of things, allow people to bring out kinds of things that they might not otherwise have. This goes to enrich everyone's life. I said, have you ever been out? You know, have you ever been to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York? He said, I've never been out of never been out of my state.
Along that same line, there was a member of your class that was going to do away with the oceanography and the National Weather Service.
Yeah.
And we don't need it anymore because I can turn on my television and get the weather.
Oh, and and every kid watching can watch Santa coming across with NORAD. It's wonderful. We've had...
Today's Dartmouth has a story that the State Department has appointed its first economist. Would you comment on that?
A Dartmouth grad.
A Dartmouth grad.
Oh, well, obviously it's necessary.
Well, no, I can comment. I'm a
How
retired
recently
State
is the
Department
grad?
and an economist.
One.
That's an exaggerated story. It's not accurate, frankly. I know.
Where do you get your news?
I had another point which has evaded me here.
It'll come back. Hang on.
Yeah, we're complaining about the PACs, and that's justifiable, I think. But your point very early was that even as powerful as them, even if they didn't exist, lobby groups exist for all kinds of entities continually, and that's bad anyway.
No, that's not bad.
No. Lobbyists
Lobbying
know
groups
more.
are good.
The groups, the lobbyists, I liked my lobbyists because I'm a moderate. So if one guy came in and said, listen, we have got to make sure that every horse in this nation is provided with sharp-shod boron shoes. I'm taking a really esoteric kind of a thing here. And I would call up the other side and say, come on in, I want to hear your side of the story. I could balance. They know lots more. I learned more stuff, like the ballasting of rails and that kind of stuff. You learn things from a lobbyist.
Can I just follow up on that just quickly, a question? And that is, will you always get the opposite side? I mean, are there enough high-powered lobbyists on the other side of the story that you're going to get the accurate other side of the story? Are all Congressmen, women getting the other side of the story, or are they just getting the side of the story that has the most?
Some of them don't want to hear the story.
Some people, it depends on your congressperson. I had to do outreach to get some of it, but I made my staff do it. I made people call.
May I thought of my other point. Congress people and senators have staffs. And it's too much to expect you, either one of you, while in Congress, to have knowledge about the whole range of problems facing the country. So if you don't have economics knowledge, that to my mind would be okay, as long as you realize it, you're intelligent, and you have in your staff somebody who can advise you on that.
That's okay.
So,
yeah.
I mean, you would be on many committees. You'd be on nuclear, you'd be on relations with China, you'd be on environment, you'd be on... So you can't have knowledge about all those things.
And you don't. That's why the lobbyists are good, actually, because that's how you gain knowledge. But also your staff does a lot. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Beth. Go ahead.
There's another component to that. Each of us are on several committees, and you should know what the issues are before your committees. By the same token, I had little understanding or knowledge of what the banking committee was doing. In the mid-'80s, we were doing a lot of savings and loan, a lot of banking legislations. There were a couple of colleagues of mine that philosophically agreed to my viewpoint, had districts somewhat like my district, and were on, one was a committee chair, subcommittee chair on banking. So when we had banking legislation up on the floor of the House, I would stop and talk to them and say, okay, what are the ramifications of what is before us? What kind of an impact will it make on a small independent bank? Back in the days when we had a lot of small independent banks, which is not today. And so therefore, you look to your colleagues for legislation, understanding, along with the lobbyists and along with your staff, because each of us have a staff and divide up. I think I had totally in the district and in Washington 24 staffers. I had a couple of them that were part-time, but I had a very large, diverse district, and almost 800,000 people when the norm was 600. So you listen to to your, not only your staff, not only lobbyists, but your colleagues that have the expertise in the other subcommittees?
You can always go to either the sponsor of the bill that you're going to be voting on, or you can go to that person's staff, as Bev said. But you could also go to your own staff and say, get on the phone and call up so-and-so and find out about this and find out the other side of it. Have we had anybody come into the office and say XYZ against ZZZ? Well, you may have. And that way you have, if they've come in or they've called, you keep track of your constituent, mail, phone, Twitters, whatever, and you absolutely keep numbers on and names on everything you possibly can, so you know if you've got something that's controversial that needs a discussion. You've got to, you're there to represent 658,000 or more people. Those are your constituents. That's what your job is. Forget about anybody else. That's where you start about deciding how you're going to vote. And if you don't do that, you don't belong in Congress, because you are a representative. That's what a representative is.
Back in the 80s, before we had the technology that we have today, we would come into the office in the morning and we had fax machines. Most people don't have a fax machine anymore, but we had fax machine. And it was before the paper was cut, so the paper would be rolling out of the fax room.
My desk was right next to the fax machine, so it was pouring over my feet
That's right.
all day long.
And somebody had to come in the morning and cut all the faxes apart. Then we got individual paper in the fax machine, and that made it much easier. Today they go in, they turn on the computer, and they say, oh my Lord, we have 565 emails that we got to go through. And my argument is, how do you know the ones that are really important? I do a lot of work for the Navy on the CNO's exec panel. And my argument with the Navy is, how on board ship do you know when you look and you open up your computer, which are the ones that are key components of technology and information that's coming into you? How do you cut through all of that? How do you get what is key and component?
Interesting thing, if you email someone who's not your local representative, you will find you're bucked right back, because there are screens now that if they know if you're from zip code 10536, you're in the district, or if you are from, you're emailing and your email comes up from some place where you're from California or emailing somebody in New York, it gets bucked right back. Used to be that they called them, they had a stamp that said buck, and they just bucked, they hand carried all the paper back and forth and just shoved things off on, it was sort of a desk marathon. Get it out of here.
Well, the mail that comes in now goes and it is scrubbed.
Right.
It takes about, 10 days to get a letter into Congress today because of the anthrax issue that came from a scientist out at Fort Detrick who is no longer with us.
There's another question here.
You just made me aware that I can only send a comment to Congressman Bass.
Is Charlie your...
Yeah, he's always up here.
Charlie's a member of my PAC. Good for you. You can't send it to me. You can't send it to the...
To the other congressman in New Hampshire.
You probably won't get a response
you probably could, as long as it's New Hampshire. Yeah. You probably could. But you'll get a faster, better answer out of Charlie's office.
Right.
Because you're his.
We get very possessive about people in our district. They become ours.
Right.
That's one of the things it's a real honor. It's a real honor to be elected in the first place. It's just amazing to wake up the morning after election and think, oh boy, we won. This is going to be fun. But what's really nice is you get a chance to fall in love with so many people that you represent. The American people are a very, very special group of people. And it's just such an honor and so much fun to get to love them all in your district.
You had a question?
question, the need to raise money is clearly driving politicians and campaigns. I just wonder if now versus before, the need to raise money is so much greater that you're not developing relationships in Washington, D.C. that might help compromise or help legislation. It's often personal relationships that get agreement. And I wonder if that is as serious an issue as
Yes.
we think.
That's what Bev was talking
Yeah.
about earlier on.
The Tuesday to Thursday congressperson who then has to be home
You
in
know,
his district.
what you end up with is when you end up with friendships on your committee assignment, people that you sit on committee with, both parties. You end up with friends. New Hampshire is a prime example because you only have 2 members, but Maryland had 8 members, and we worked together. We had committee. We would have lunch once a month. I was the dean of our delegation, so they were always in my office. I can remember once the media was outside of the office, and they couldn't imagine what in the world was going on because we were sitting in there, they were telling jokes, we were talking about legislation, and everybody was laughing, and the media kept saying, what went on in there? What went on in there? And then the other group that you tend to be close to are the ones whose offices are near yours because you're walking back and forth to the floor to go over and vote. Hold the elevator, I'll be right there. Norm Dix's office was next to mine, and he would always yell out, I'm on my way, hold the elevator. So, I mean, these are the kind of friendships that you develop and you work with, and I don't see that as much anymore. You had a question right there.
Back to what can
You
be
want
done.
the microphone?
I'm sorry. Back to what can be done. I believe it was Ezra Klein who was here this spring who said what surprised me, that he felt that term limits would not be of value, and he gave 3 substantive reasons for why this was not benefit. I've suffered from the throw the bums out routine on occasions, which every 2 to 6 years we could try.
That's fine.
We could argue that when you are not worried about being reelected, you might spend more time and work harder at your position if there were limits. Would you two both, I know you had experience, would you comment on whether this would, from your point of view, be helpful to the legislative branch or destructive to it?
My argument, and term limits was a high-profile issue in the 80s. And my argument was that if you had term limits, you would find a member that would be there 2 years or, 2 terms or 3 terms. The institution would be run by the staff, and it would be run by the individuals that, or the districts that had the best staff. And I don't think that's what the American public wants. I think the American public, my argument was, I said, you get a shot at me. I always had a primary, so you get a shot at me twice every 2 years. And I think in the House, that is a strength. And the Senate would say, well, there's no way we're going to let the House run for 4-year terms because then they'll come and run against us and it won't cost them anything. Well, that's, I think the House is referred to as the people's house. And if you question your senators, they will tell you how terribly important they are.
Where you need to go with that is to stop gerrymandering. Be honest about districts. There's a district that has just been drawn in one of the states, and I saw a very funny article about it. There was a drawing in crayon by a chimpanzee and a drawing with a paintbrush by a 6-year-old child, and then underneath that was a picture of this gerrymandered district, and it just passed.
Sounds like Maryland.
Gerrymandering stops the political process in a very bad way. From performing in an appropriate way. So that's the place to go when you talk about term limits. Bev's a Democrat, and she was in Congress in the time when the Democrats were still in power. The Republicans, after 40 years of wandering in the wilderness of the House, took over with my class. They were stunned. They found rooms and things they didn't even know existed.
Yeah, but they didn't know how to put legislation together.
May not have, Bev, but my point is not that. My point is that what they realized was that without term limits for chairmen in Congress of the various committees, those committees, the old dogs, have their own prejudices, and you'll never get through them. And the only way to stop that is give everybody 6 years. You get 6 years of joy of being the chairman, and then you're gone. And that was a very good rule that the Republicans put in. I am in favor of term limits if they were term limits that would extend out to the point where a representative would have the time to build the historic knowledge and create and do things that are specific and good for America. That takes time. That takes time. If I were going to put a term limit on anybody in Congress, I would say 16 to 20 years. It's a long time, and very few people are in Congress that long.
I think if you look today at the House, and you look at the list of who's first, second, third, most of them have not been there a long time. Now you got John Dingell, who's been there a long time. You've got
And his father is
Charlie Rangel. You've got Don Young, but the majority of them have been there 10, 12 years.
These are not hereditary seats. No one should view them as that. It's okay to vote against Sonny.
One more?
Sure. Does anybody else have any questions? I mean, this side has been totally quiet. You have, okay, you're on.
And both of you must have faced this quandary. You say you must represent your district and the people in it and their views. But suppose your view, and it must have occurred occasionally, your view is different from theirs in the sense of what's good for the country. What they want to do is not good for the country in your view. That comes up from time to time, I suppose.
Sure. You do what's good for the country, and if you don't believe what they want, as far as I was concerned, I sucked it up and voted for my people. It wasn't where, twice I voted on a bill that left me in such devastation. I ran off the floor of the House and cried. It wasn't what I believed. I had to do that for the people because that's where the majority of the people in my district wanted me to vote. And I didn't think it was the right thing. I had a very big problem, an ethical problem with it. But I did it because they elected me to represent them. It's not about me. It's about them. And if it's a choice between them, their desire in the country, it's the country. Then I'll go after it.
I had a great advantage because my district was extremely diverse. I had a large number. I went from the Washington suburbs, as I said, to Pittsburgh and into Baltimore. So I had a lot of agriculture. I had a lot of coal mines. I had Appalachia. I had federal employees. I had a tremendous number of small business. And so I could look at any piece of... that's right. And I would make some people happy, some people unhappy. It's like the old adage, you know, some of my friends are for it, some of my friends are against it, and I'm for my friends. So,
isn't there any interest in Congress in democratizing the procedures that the Congress follows? For instance, in the committees, why doesn't the committee choose a chairman to serve for 1 year, and it should rotate alphabetically or some way?
It's a nice thought, but Thomas Jefferson wrote our rules.
One of the reasons is, oh, go ahead. But one of the reasons is that when you have a committee, you have the committee staff, and the committee staff is at the behest of the chairman. And so if you rotated it every year or 2 years, you would have a committee staff that would be in turmoil. And I'm looking at...
They'd be in turmoil. They'd just shift to the next person.
I'm looking at the Armed Services Committee because the next person would bring in his staff.
Right.
And I'm looking at armed services, which has a tremendous amount of technical issues.
I'd say you have to clean house.
Well, that's exactly why we put term limits in.
But then, if,
Democratically and not autocratically, and that's what you're doing.
if you clean house, what you are going to end up with is the quality of the individuals that are in those staff jobs goes down considerably because it is a job. And they need to be able to have some kind of continuity for their family and for their interest.
Why can't
Now,
you have,
now,
that doesn't
wait,
make any
right
sense.
here we have an individual that worked on a congressional staff, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, would you perceive that the staff you worked with would be better or worse had they rotated every two years?
Worse, far worse. There's a learning curve that takes place.
Yeah.
I mean, how long did it take
it's
you
an
two to figure out how the
utopia that
institution
you're talking
worked?
about.
Oh, it's like, when you go into Congress, there's so much going on, and it's coming at you so fast. The analogy has been made, and it's a true one. It's like opening your mouth and trying to drink from a fire hose, straight down. It's tough. It's hard. People who think that Congress people are pretty dumb and stupid ought to go down there and start talking to some people. They're not as dumb and stupid as you might think. I had a pretty negative view about a few people, and then I got to know them, and I thought, I was dead wrong. I'm glad I had a chance to get to know them. The problem with going alphabetically, as you say, is that some people...
Committee, and the staff is just with the committee where no matter who the chairman is.
Then the staff
That's not
becomes...
true.
Then the staff runs the committee and not whoever is the chairman.
Right.
I discovered as a freshman member of Armed Services and on Armed Services, I was there for 8 years, and we had a professional staff, which is, in the greatest sense of the word, was a professional staff. I went on to another committee, Interior. Interior had a majority and minority staff,
Right.
which did not serve well for the committee members. A professional staff is far superior. And it was very difficult for me to think, gosh, why are they so parochial?
I just think that the autocratic chairman is done democratic as it goes in
Oh,
now.
but I'm
One
sorry, ma'am,
person
you're
should
talking
not
about an
have
autocratic
one
chairman.
person should not
Chairman
be
can't
able to-
be, no, listen to me for a minute. You're talking about the chairman as being autocratic. Very few of them can be. They have a committee, and the committee consists of Democrats and Republicans, people who are doing their homework and know their stuff, and people who don't. And the people who are doing their homework and doing their stuff are usually the people who are really interested in taking that guy's job. So that person knows it. So what do? They negotiate on both sides. Very few chairmen are autocratic. So you need to stop having that in your...
When you have one chairman who can hold up an appointment, for instance,
You're talking about the Senate.
that sort of thing, that they should not have.
That's the Senate.
Right.
And that's a whole different... That's the Senate. That's not the
And
House.
Committee, the chairman should report the committee's decision. It's not the chairman. You've got it all wrong. It's just set up
Let me give you a prime example. There was a point in time where Ron Dellums chaired the Armed Services Committee. Philosophically, he disagreed with the majority of the legislation that we passed out and went to the floor with. He was the committee chair. He stood up on the floor of the House, and he gave an opportunity, and he spoke in favor of the legislation that was before the House. When it came time to vote, he voted against it. But he, as a committee chair, took the idea that the committee had come up with and went to the floor with that bill and stood on the floor of the House and defended that bill. And then he, as an individual, voted against it.
Who else has a question? Or are you petered out here? You do? Here?
If not,
Thank you.
I'll thank you for coming. Appreciate it.